All right, let's jump right into this explainer with a question that might make you just a little bit uncomfortable. I want you to think about the building you live in right now. Do you actually know who lived next door before you? We often sign these leases, accept the cheap rent, and move our boxes in without ever really asking about the history of the walls surrounding us. Well, today, we're breaking down a seriously chilling piece of source material that explores exactly why that blind trust can be a massive mistake. We're going to map out the anatomy of a haunting by looking at the terrifying, well-documented timeline of a tenant named Jake. So our source material kicks off with Jake. He just moved into this old, kind of run-down apartment building in Chicago. Now, the rent was dirt cheap, and like a lot of us looking for a steal, Jake didn't really ask too many questions. But on his very first night, while he's just minding his own business and packing his boxes, he hears it. A faint knock on the wall. Knock, knock, knock. He completely freezes. The sound was distinct, and there was no mistaking it. It was coming directly from the apartment next door, apartment 307. Now here's the kicker. The landlord had explicitly sworn to Jake that apartment 307 had been totally empty for years. So faced with this impossible noise coming from a supposedly vacant room, Jake makes his first big mistake. He shrugs it off, ignores it, and just goes back to unpacking. But as you can probably guess, whatever was inside 307 wasn't just going to let him ignore it. Just a few minutes later, Jake's phone buzzes. He looks down. Unknown number. He answers with a cautious hello and is immediately hit with heavy static. And then a whisper cuts through, delivering a very specific warning. Don't answer the knocking. And just like that, the call drops. Dead silence. Jake, trying to rationalize the whole thing, nervously laughs it off. I mean, he figures it's just someone in the building playing a prank on the new guy, right? But as we're about to see, the trap was already snapping shut around him. Let's look at this timeline, because the pacing of these events is absolutely crucial to understanding how this entity operates. At 8 p.m. flat, the faint knocking starts. Barely 15 minutes later, at 8:15, he gets the warning call. Then, nothing. Just hours of dead quiet. But at exactly midnight, the whole situation escalates. The knocking comes back. Knock, knock, knock. Only this time it is incredibly loud, it's aggressive, it's literally impossible to ignore. And this sudden escalation acts as the perfect bait, pulling a terrified but curious Jake right out of his own apartment and into the dark hallway to investigate. Standing out there in the dim hallway, Jake slowly turns his attention to the door of apartment 307. And it's slightly open. There is this freezing cold draft just spilling out into the hall. Now, Jake could have sworn on his life that this door was locked tight just a few hours earlier. So against his better judgment, and honestly against that super creepy phone warning he just got, he pushes the door open. He steps inside and the place is pitch black. Thick dust covers absolutely everything. It looks completely abandoned, which perfectly matches the landlord's story, right? Well, almost. Because this is where Jake stumbles onto a horrifying physical impossibility. The landlord claimed 307 had been empty for years, and the layers of dust definitely back that up. But sitting right there, dead center on the kitchen counter, is a fresh cup of coffee. And guys, it's still warm. This jarring contradiction between a long-abandoned room and an incredibly fresh, active presence sends Jake's heart right into his throat. And right at that exact peak of his panic, a woman's voice echoes out from the dark bedroom. Hello? Drawn in by the voice, Jake slowly inches closer to the bedroom. He calls back. Is someone there? No answer. Silence. But then the bedroom door slowly creaks open entirely by itself. Jake peeks inside, fully expecting to see the woman who called out, or maybe whoever poured that fresh cup of coffee. But he finds absolutely nothing. The room is completely, totally empty, except for one single object left behind. An old mirror. That's it. Just a mirror. So Jake steps up and he looks into the glass. At first, it's just his own reflection staring back, but then the horror fully reveals itself. Something begins to materialize in the reflection, standing directly behind him. The source material describes this entity perfectly. It's this incredibly tall figure with dead pale skin and solid pitch black eyes. And it's standing mere inches from the back of his neck. Pure panic takes over. Jake whips around to face it, but nothing. The physical room is totally empty, and when he nervously turns back to check the mirror, the figure is completely gone. Breathing heavily, his heart absolutely pounding out of his chest, Jake nopes right out of apartment 307 and sprints back to the safety of his own unit.
But the thing is, the entity is already a step ahead of him, because as soon as he reaches his own front door, he looks down and sees a physical note that's been slipped underneath it. He picks it up, and it reads in this chilling, almost mocking tone, "You looked into the mirror. Now it knows where you live." As you can imagine, Jake does not sleep a single wink that night. Now, the really crucial context drops the very next morning. An exhausted, visibly shaken Jake tracks down his landlord to demand answers about 307. And the moment he mentions it, the old man's face just drains of all color. He finally confesses the dark history he'd been hiding. Years ago, a tenant named Sarah lived in 307, and she vanished without a trace. The police scoured the place but never found a single clue to where she went. In fact, the only piece of furniture left behind in her apartment was that old mirror.
This confession maps out a really terrifying, established pattern for this anomaly. Get this, ever since Sarah disappeared, literally every single person who has dared to enter that apartment after midnight reports the exact same thing. They all see that tall, black-eyed figure standing right behind them in the mirror. And the aftermath for these people, pretty bleak. Most of them pack their bags and move out immediately. But a few of them, well, a few of them simply vanish, just like Sarah. Seeing the writing on the wall, Jake knows exactly what he has to do. Jake decides right then and there he is not sticking around to become another vanishing statistic. That very same evening, he frantically packs up his car. He's ready to leave the apartment, the cheap rent, and the entire city of Chicago in his rearview mirror. But just as he's about to put the car in drive, he makes the fatal mistake of looking back. He glances up at the building. The window to apartment 307 is wide open. And standing right there in the frame, staring down at him, is that pale face with the pitch-black eyes. And it's smiling. Before Jake can even wrap his head around what he's seeing, his cell phone lights up. It's ringing. And yep, it's that unknown number again. With shaking hands, he hits answer and puts it to his ear. That same static-filled whisper comes through the speaker, delivering a horrifying final promise. You can leave the building, but you can't leave me. Click. The call disconnects. The true horror of his situation finally dawns on him. Moving in slow motion, Jake shifts his eyes up to his car's rearview mirror. And right there, looking back at him from the glass, is the figure. It's sitting right in the backseat of his car. This reveals the ultimate inescapable rule of the haunting. Once you look into that mirror in 307, the entity binds itself to your reflection. By simply making eye contact in the glass, Jake inadvertently invited it to follow him. It was never confined to the physical walls of the apartment building at all. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We started this off by questioning the hidden histories of our physical spaces, right? The old apartments, those dusty, forgotten corners. But the story of Jake and apartment 307 forces us to look at something way closer to home. It forces us to question the reflections we trust every single day. If something out there can latch onto a reflection, hopping seamlessly from a dusty bedroom mirror right into your car, well, the next time you glance up to check your rearview mirror, what will be looking back at you?